everybody. Before we start our meeting, just would like to share with you the book club we will have about the book, The Messengers, Os Mensageiros em português. It's going to be on November 23rd here at FSS from 3 to 5. I know that you guys won't be here anymore.
Yeah, we won't.
But you can follow us, and I think we will be sharing through the internet as well. It's a very interesting book, very very good to learn a little bit more about the spiritual life.
All right, thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the kind invitation. Where's the book? Oh, here it is. Okay, so I'd like to kick this meeting off with a reading from the Gospel according to the Spiritism. And this one specifically is almost at the end of the book. It's when Kardec goes along the prayers and giving us tips on how to pray, what to think, why we're doing that. And in particular, this one, it explains, let's use this verb, explains the Lord's Prayer, Pai Nosso. Specifically, this part of the Your Kingdom Come. So the prayer starts, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come. Venha a nós o vosso reino. God, you gave us laws that are full of wisdom and that would make us happy if only we observed them. With these laws, we could establish justice and peace. Each of us could help each other, could help the other instead of doing harm to one another, as we often do. Under these laws, the strong would support the weak instead of crushing them. We could avoid the evils that give rise to all sorts of abuse and excess. All the hardships of this world stem from the violation of your laws because there isn't one infraction that doesn't bring its inevitable consequence. You gave the animal instinct, thus setting the range of their needs and behavior. To us, you gave intelligence and reason as well as instinct. Still more, you gave us the freedom to observe and disobey your laws regarding our personal lives. That is, you gave us the power of choosing between good and evil, so that we have both the merit and the responsibility for our acts. No one can claim to be ignorant of your laws because, in your foresight, you caused them to be engraved in the consciousness of each person, regardless of their religion's orientation or nationality. In this way, the people who violate them do so because they despise you. The day will come when, according to your promise, everyone will practice these laws. Then unbelief will have disappeared. Everyone will recognize you as supreme over all things, and the reign of your laws will proclaim your reign here on earth. God, privilege us and bring the day of your glory closer by illuminating our journey on the path of truth. So now let's close our eyes and take this moment to pray together, to connect with the superior beings that have helped us through our journey on earth. And in this connection, we first thank for the opportunity that is to be here as a group, as immortal spirits, to listen to the gospel, to listen to Jesus' teachings, and more than that, to bring the gospel closer to our hearts. This will bring us comfort, love, and will help us to take even more steps towards the good. Dear Lord, open my eyes so I can see all the love that is around. That I can see and feel how my neighbors, how the good spirits have filled this room, my life, my journey with love. We ask for all the good spirits to help us in our thoughts, in our feelings, so that we can make the most of our fraternal meeting. So be it. All right, I must say my heart is full of joy to be here and take this opportunity to be with you today. It's always a great experience to take this chance, and not only this minute, this hour or so that we're going to be here, but also all the time that take us actually, the lecturers or the presenters, to prepare these presentations and connect with the gospel. And in this particular occasion, and the plan is to investigate deeply in ourselves how we're connected with the parable of the sower. You may not have heard about it, but the moment we start the text, as Jesus explained to disciples, we're definitely going to make important connections here. And for Eric's amusement, this is one of the topics that for long ago has touched my heart the most, and it's probably the third time that I'll be talking about this parable. And it was introduced to me when we were studying as a group. All the presenters here, we do have a group that we meet every Wednesday to study the gospel, to study Kardec's books. And this was introduced to me probably like 2 years ago or so. And it never left me, never left my thoughts. So the interesting part will be to go through it in English, so the vocabulary will be slightly different, but I hope the feeling and this connection that we'll try to make together with the parable would be very meaningful to us, to every single one of us. So in that sense, let me ask you first then. It is a small group, I think we can do lots of back and forth here. So do you know about the parable of the sower? No? Okay, that's great, no problem. So it goes, we have this passage in Mark, also Matthew, and Paul. Oh, forgot the third one. Luke. And this text here is coming from Mark, chapter 4. Listen, a farmer went out to sow his seeds. Actually, I have a question to make, but this is not a very common verb, is it? Sow? What is sow? What is sowing the seed? Seeds? Okay, I guess you guys understand seeds, but sow is when you take the seeds and you want to grow your crops, so you take the seeds and you spread all over the field, right? So it's semeando, so it's sowing. A farmer went out to sow his seeds. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the bird came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow, but when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, so that they did not bear grain. Still, other seed fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop. Some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times. Then Jesus said, whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. And that's it. And that's simple but extremely meaningful. I hope we'll see how meaningful it is and how we're going to connect to this parable. Because there are a few elements that are very important here. So, original plan was to divide the audience here in 3 groups. So, one group could think about the sower. What are the characteristics of the sower? And the other group to talk about the soil. And the other one for the seed. To think about the seed. What is the seed? But then, I guess we're going to do something different. And let's go through this again now step by step, right? Let's try to make sure that we understand all the passages here, all the text. So then Jesus said, he was going through, starting his this parable, saying, listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. So it's easy to picture, right? A farmer going down and sowing and spreading the seed over the field, right? As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path. What is the path? So as he was going, you have different types of soils, and some fell along the path. But it was exposed, right? So it was not exactly the right place for the seed. So then the birds, they came and ate it up. So the birds ate the seed. So the seed is not going to produce any crop in this location along the path. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. So can you imagine a rocky soil? So there's a lot of rocks there, and that's not good for plants, right? And the reason is because the roots, they will not make fruit to access all the nutrients it needs, right? So some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow, so there was a little bit of soil, so it sprang. But then the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. So there was no way to get the nutrients out of those rocks, right? And even though it sprang, it didn't have the strength to keep going. Other seed fell among thorns, spines, which grew up and choked the plants, so they did not bear grain. So in this type of soil, thorns they will suffocate the seed. They will not let the seed go into a crop. So they did not bear grain, which means that so that seed eventually grew, but it was scorched and did not yield any other seeds, right? Still, other seed fell on good soil. So through all this sowing, some went along the way, rocky soil, thorny soil, but some of them fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop. Soil was good, had all the nutrients. It produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times. So that unique seed, the only seed that the plant eventually gave 30 or 60 or 100 times more than the seed it came up with. Hello. Then Jesus said, whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. And there are 3 elements here, we already said, the sower, the soil, and the seed. What is very interesting about this parable is that we know that Jesus taught us through parables, right? And there's a few reasons for that. One of them is because it's easier to make people connect with the theme. And these in particular, we had down in Mark and all the both in Mark, Matthew, and Luke. His disciples go there and ask, "Hey, Jesus, what you're talking about? What do you mean by this parable, right? And then we have Jesus' explanation of the parable to them. So that's very very interesting, because we can use Jesus' explanation of that to help us understand what's going on. Not only that, there is another book that also takes this passage and explains, mostly focused on the behavior of the spiritist. So, gospel according to Spiritism. If you go chapter 17, it's the chapter Be Perfect, and it right after the so there is a text about the good spiritist and explaining what a good spiritist would be, and then right after that text, Kardec comes and explains or presents this passage here. But the message there is to say, hey, we as spiritists, which type of soil are we? Are we the good soil that is receiving the seed? Are we the thorny soil, or the rocky soil, or just along the path, right? Not only that, there's another book that's also very interesting, and I forgot to take it. Now it's from our dear friend Alírio Cerqueira from FEMT, Spiritist Federation from Mato Grosso. Is that how you translate that? State of Mato Grosso. And in that book, and actually there are 2 editions of that book, and then you have many different parables and scene. What does that mean to you, to us? 3 of them now? Okay, and then what that means to us, bringing this reflection to ourselves. So then we have Jesus explaining, we have Kardec having his go at it. And if you Google it, you'll see many different churches going through the same topic. And the core of those texts or those teachings from different churches, it's basically we as the church, we have the mission to spread the seed, to sow the seed, right? And we want to make sure that these will fell on good soil, or so the discussion or these texts go along this way. They said that the seed is the word, is the gospel, and we need to spread it to whomever, right? You find it funny, right? So yeah, we're gonna spread the gospel, of course. But in this presentation here, like in this get together we're having now, let's try to see the seed from a slightly different angle, right? It's still the gospel. It's still the seed that Jesus is talking about here is the message that he's bringing. But this message has a key component to it, a key characteristic to it, which is love. So then we're going to go through these elements, and most important part of it is to see how we're connected to it. I'm totally biased because I feel many different connections here. I hope you can have the same experience. So 3 elements: the sower, the soil, and the seed. What can we talk about the sower here? The sower is in very first sentence, right? A farmer went out to sow his seed. So we can imagine the sower as someone who is spreading the seed. And then in this translation here is the New International Translation is calling it a farmer. So if we take the seed as the gospel, or the seed as love, as a good feeling, should we be talking about farmer or sower, and what's going to be the difference there? So let's think about a farmer. With a farmer, we are sowing our seeds because we want to get something back. We want the fruits. We want more seed, right? And that's the whole point of farmers, right? They want to grow crops, and they want to get seed. When we are seeding love, or when are we seeding the gospel, should we expect something back? What is the true meaning of charity? Right? The true charity is when it's done without thinking on the payback. Right? So the term here is, of course, it works for the parable, like the farmer went out to seed, and people can relate it to that. But when you put a different spin on it and say, we're talking about the gospel and love, the sower is a better term than farmer. If you'll be a little bit of terminology discussions there, because when we are seeding love, we should not expect return. We should not expect to get something back. Otherwise, it's not true love. Otherwise, it's something else biasing my intentions. Right?
Yeah, and just to add on this,
of course, thanks.
if I am aware of the divine laws, that's going to be consequence. I know that sowing love, I will crop love. It's a consequence. Now, what is the intention or the remuneration that I am expecting is the problem.
Yeah, it's the
But
payback.
if I am fully aware that I am doing good, I will receive good.
Yeah.
And if I am doing bad, I will receive not so good.
Yeah. And this is a compensation that is the troubling part.
Yeah.
If we are doing this, trying to be good, try to be loving creatures, loving beings, because we want to get something back, the heart might not be in the right place, and the intention is what matters.
And how I want it back. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bargain.
Yeah.
Right?
Do I want material things, or do I want love back, or do I want new opportunities, new tests? Right. So then the sower here, some could say, well, you know what? It's not being very efficient, because if it is a farmer and they're trying to sow and it's just spreading seeds all over, said, oh, it's being like, it's sowing indiscriminately. Oh. And, well, the practice back in those days was that like there was of course farming technologies, but it's fair to say there was a practice to just spread as many seeds as possible and hope they'll come up, right? But when you get to the seeds of love, sowing indiscriminately, it's a very good practice. It's not to be good only for this particular type of soil or this particular type of people, because they are related to me somehow. But then if you want to spread love, it should be to our neighbor. And who is our neighbor, right? Where to draw the line. So from the soil perspective, Jesus in this parable mentions 4 types of soil. So one is not exactly soil, it's like just the seed that fell along the path. And then you have the rocky soil, the thorny soil, and the good soil. And this is mostly where we tend to connect ourselves, because we are receiving tons of seeds of love every day, every second. And how we accommodate them, how we make them grow, it depends on my efforts to prepare myself to be a good soil. And I think that's going to be the key message in the end. Well, there are 4 types of soils. You're going to see each one in detail later on. But it's very important to. So when like again, if you Google it and you see text from different doctrines, different churches, they'll say like, oh, this is someone that is ready to receive the gospel and live it, or someone else that is still fighting against it, or those that hear something good, feel excited about it, but then like the feel goes down shortly. It doesn't sustain long term. And then the seed. The seed, it's very important part of this parable because if we take them as seeds of love, and if we understand love, which by the way is the virtue of the month here at FSS, right? That's actually what, yeah, that's another thing that motivated this presentation. So if we understand love, sometimes it's easy to understand the love we feel for our relatives. Sometimes it's understand to feel the love we have for our children. Sometimes it's easy to understand the love that God has towards us. Sometimes it's easy to understand the love our neighbors are offering us. Sometimes it's easy to understand that difficult situation that I'm going through, there's actually lots of love around it, because it's allowing me to grow as a immortal spirit. So if you take love in all these dimensions, from the most single thing that you can think of, to be very cliche, a smile of a kid, or love from your relatives or family and so on, we're gonna have a better sense of what this parable is talking about. Because sometimes we are faced with love actions from our neighbors, let's say, and sometimes we don't understand that, and we may have a tendency to suffocate it. If it's something that is not in agreement with my ego or my selfish thoughts, I might have the tendency to just dump it, right? So yeah, you're telling me this, but that's not for me right now. Like, or I listen here and it goes that through other ear. It just passes on. It doesn't stick. So in that case, we're being thorny soils for that message of love, right? Because it provoked a reaction. So we had a chance to think about it, but then we immediately went down and suffocated and say, you know what? Yeah, the gospel is telling me this, but I cannot stand that person. So there is a rebellion here. We're kind of rebelling against the love that you're getting from these messages. So in that context, seeds of love, we see love everywhere. If you cannot list 10 loving things you received, or loving actions you received today, if you cannot count 10, you're not looking hard enough. And 10 is just a number that I came up with, right? Because it's way more than that. It starts with the love of God providing us health, for instance, to be here. That's immediately number one. But then looking for love in the right places, because we want to know exactly how we're going to receive such seeds. How do we receive? Okay, much better now. How do we receive such seed? And that's the point where it brings us our attention to the act of receiving, because it's very convenient or easy to stay on the passive side of it, right? So something occurred that was very good to me. I can totally see it's a loving thing that happened to me, but okay, yeah, it's fine. It's just passive. I'm not acting, just receiving that. But it shouldn't be that way. The act of receive love actions, love acts from others, actually should inspire us to act. To act. Because we want to grow crops. We want to multiply that love. And multiplying this love is it's one of the key messages that Jesus left us. Right? To spread the good. So when we receive, so thinking of us now as different types of soils, right? Rocky soil, this is the good. The good soil along the path, and the thorny soil we speak of. Because it is quite revealing when in our connections to ourselves, to our immortal spirit that we are, in our connections to our conscience. It's very revealing the moment we realize that, hey, for that particular fact that happened, I was acting like a thorny soil. Or for that particular act, I was acting like along the path. I didn't care, like didn't move me. Or when we're sometimes, and that's quite often, even in our in spiritism, you get super excited about something, but that thing gets no roots, so it is scorched by the sun. So fogo de palha. So it gets something excited at the beginning, but if you're acting as a thorny soil, if you're not making the actions to make it into a good soil, it will just fade away. So along the path, it's one of the places that received the seed from the sower. And then Jesus explained that, and this time I'm taking from Matthew. So when anyone hears the message about the kingdom, so when anyone hears about the gospel, right, and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in their heart. This is the seed sown along the path. Remember, the birds came and were pecking the seeds that fell along the path. So in this case here, how that would it translate into our immortal spirit? So we get the message, we see the gospel, we may even understand it, but if there's no connection with the feeling, should then leave the gospel. If you only stay on the understanding part, okay, I understand that, I see where it's going, but it's still exposed in the open field, then the evil ones will come and then snatch it away. So who is the evil one here? Because in some translations you have like the Satan or something like that, but the evil one, who is the evil one? It's our bad tendencies, right? It's our selfishness, our pride. That's the one. These are the not the virtues. What's the opposite of virtue? The
Vice.
Vice. Thanks. These are the vice that will actually take this loving message away from us. If a message from gospel, it's not convenient for me with the life I'm living, with the life I'm living now, then it just doesn't get any roots, and your selfishness or your pride will just take it away, right? But, and there's a big but here. So in English you say that everything you say before but, you just forget about it, right? But there's a big but here, because these seeds of love, even though at this particular moment we might be living exposed so that a bird will come and take away, they will always last engraved in our spirit. These seeds of love, they'll never perish. They might not yield fruits in this life, or this year, or this week, but they will stick with us. And at some point in the future, we don't know when, of course, that message, that particular teaching, that particular act of love we receive will sparkle something in us, will ignite a fire or something like that. Which is very comforting, right? Because at some point we may look back and say, oh, that person was so good to me, and I just, at the moment I didn't realize that. And I feel, now I feel guilty about it, and guilt is not something that we should nurture. But the comfort comes from, hey, now I know, right? And I can definitely act to spread the love that I received. For someone, or for us in general, who are along the path, how can we turn into good soil? How that transformation occurs? It happens through two different paths. So the first one is the many invitations of love we get received every day, right? Because at some moment we might have the aha moment. We're just living life as biological organisms, and like we don't care about all these things. Life is going on and so on. But eventually, a particular message of love would touch us, and then, you know what? I could grow some seed here, and then we start turning this soil into something that will help generate more love. And the other thing is through pain. Also, there is another way to invite people to build good soils. Is sometimes we might have situations like, oh, you know, that's hurtful. I should do something about it, and then search for the truth, and then see how to move forward with those feelings. So, someone going along the path, there's typically these two ways to get this aha moment and say, oh, I should probably put some fertilizer here and make it turn into good soil. I should probably work with my feelings, with my acts, and understand myself to actually be productive when I receive these messages.
And just to add on the analogy of the fertilizer, what would be a fertilizer? It's a good question. I think how can we fertilize or help others to fertilize their soils? What is a fertilizer?
Something that your trains carry along the country. No, I'm joking.
I specifically work in that. But the 5 books behind Mr. Silva are fertilizers, right? Spiritism is a great fertilizer. It's a great way to develop the field and get it ready for receiving the seeds. Otherwise, the seeds will perish.
Are we fertilizing right now?
We are fertilizing right now.
Right now. We're setting up our hearts, we're setting up our thoughts, our feelings to turn into good soils, yeah? That's a great analogy, thanks a lot. And then we go to the rocky soil. So let's read Jesus first. The seed falling on rocky ground refers to someone who hears the word and at once receives it with joy. Right? But since they have no root, they last only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. So, we can all, to some extent, relate to that. So, in this particular case, we're talking about the gospel, like we receive it with joy, but to actually develop a sustainable or long-term life based on the gospel, we should definitely take these rocks out of the soil because they are not helping the love to grow. And think about the physical act of plowing. Is the name in English. Arar, fazer o arado, plowing. So think about the action of actually cleaning the soil to receive the thing. It might be very painful, right? It might be very painful. So to turn rocky soil into good soil, what should we do then? Hire a company, say, hey, like, can you plow this soil to me? Nah, no. It's not going to be an external solution to this this conversion. Actually, nothing will be external. All the answers are within us. So, if I'm having this joy, but then it fades away because of when comes trouble or persecution, and it's definitely related to, again, selfishness and pride. Because, you know what, yeah, you have to, I'm trying to come up with an example here. We're talking about to live a non-materialistic life for long now, and that's the key thing of the Spiritism, right? But then if some financial material thing comes up and that eventually turns to be my focus in that moment, then again you get a message with joy, okay, nice, yeah, let's live this non-materialistic life, but when trouble or persecution comes, then that motivation fades away. These are still rocks in our soil that are not allowing the seeds of love to grow roots, right? And it's not going to be a passive act to actually turn this into a good soil. We actually have to go there and remove those rocks. But to remove them, we have to find them, right? We have to know where they are. And to know where they are, where are the rocks in my soil, I need to understand my being very well, right? It's typically where it causes most pain. That's when there's a big rock not allowing us. If I'm very impatient, or if I'm, there's so many vices that I can think of. But these are typically the feelings that will make you feel hurt. But that's also an indication that there is a rock that needs to be moved away. Right? All right. So the thorny soil is the one that is every type of soil is relevant, but this one is particular worrisome, because in this one we're actually suffocating the love. We're being very deliberate in putting that away. So the thorns, the pointy things, will just not let the love grow. And that's a very deliberate way. So in Matthew, Jesus said, or Matthew 13:22, Jesus says, the seed falling among the thorns refers to someone who hears the word, but the worries of this life, and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. So it is a lifestyle or a way to act that is actually will be suppressing the gospel, or not suppressing the gospel, but suppressing the message that we receive. And so, not convenient, forget about it, shut it down, put it in a drawer, and let's pretend it never happened. So, but there's hope, of course. It's not that we're gonna be that way for a long, long time, and that's quite comforting. But to turn thorny soil into good soil, it's even it requires even harder work than with the rocky soil, because the rocky soil, you just need to take the rocks out, identify the rocks, like what is what is my pain points here, what are the things that are not allowing me to experience love in its fullness. So take the rocks out. With the thorny soil, the thorns are there. Os espinhos estão lá. So, how to turn that into good soil? In real life, like if you have a thorny soil in your backyard, what would you do? I have no gardeners in the audience. Have you ever heard that when you take leaves that fell from a tree, and if you leave it there, it's going to decompose, it's going to turn into good soil? So, organic matter, let's go into chemistry now, joking. So, organic matter, like leaves that left a tree, so they're dead now, they're dry. We have examples here now. If you leave them on the soil, they'll eventually, the microorganisms, they will take those nutrients back, and the soil will be good. Right? So that organic matter is good for soil, will make your soil richer in nutrients. So to turn a thorny soil into good soil on our physical life here is you take all that thorn, you destroy it, you cut them out, right? And let it dead in the soil, because it will eventually turn into good soil. There's lots of nutrients there, and the thorns themselves that will eventually reach the soil, and the soil will grow different things, whatever you seed. So, but we're talking about an act of chopping off these thorns. And now, if you go back to our existence and say, like, when I'm acting as thorny soil, I'm suffocating the love, I should actually take away things or actions that I'm used to, and let it there to depurar. Okay, vocabulary. Okay, so let it there to eventually turn into good things, right? But this is way more drastic than just remove the rocks, right? It's something that will there'll be a lot of pain and suffering in this. To cleanse, depurate, purify, expurgate, debug. Thanks a lot. So there will be a lot of pain involved in this. It's not borderline suffering, because there is like things that have deep root in our actions that will have to be chopped off, that will have to be re-signified. But acting as thorny soils for the cities of love, acting as thorny soils for the gospel, we are being a heavyweight for the society in general, as the society moves along towards like the good. And if we're acting as thorny soils, suffocating love, we are going the opposite direction. Okay? And then good soil. But the seed falling on good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop, yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. And that's when we start feeling and living the message, the gospel, feeling and living a loving and caring life with the neighbors. And when you have a crop, then you have more seeds, and eventually we as soils, we could also start spreading the seeds out, right? And that should be our aim. That should be our aim, to be good soils for the cities of love, coming from the gospel, coming from our neighbors, from God, of course. And by understanding and having this feeling of how we react, we'll eventually figure out the tools we need to make it into good soils. Because it will be very common if in our reflections, when we think about our lives, our experience and so on, there will be moments we'll see, oh, I was a very thorny soil, I totally repressed that love message that was coming through. I still, when we're thinking about this, we're going to still think that, oh, these are the rocky parts, these are the things that are not sticking to me, and I'm not allowing this love message to grow roots. But all these will come when you start being proactively to identify these actions. When I'm being thorny, when I'm being rocky, when it's just along the way, along the path. Just things are happening. I don't really care. Things are happening, I get excited, but it doesn't grow roots. I need to work on my rocks. Or things, I see something that is definitely a loving message, but you know what, it's against what I'm believing now, against what I'm trying to achieve in my life, so bury it, forget about it. That's how this parable it brings lots of self-reflection. It brings us to a point where we can kind of label our attitudes, say, it was this way, that way, but not in a sense that we should punish ourselves or feel guilty about it. That's of course not. The whole point is to find the tools to turn whatever we are now into good soils and spread love. And one question is, like, final remark. So seeds of love will always sprout, in that sense that it will always will always be engraved in our eternal existence now, immortal spirits. So even if you leave the seed along the path, eventually we're gonna come back to it. Even if that message is being suffocated by thorns, eventually we're gonna chop out the thorns and let it grow. So these are not perishable. And that's a very nice thing, because you might have experienced that some things we hear long ago, or we study long ago, or we feel long ago, it's only completely understood after a certain amount of time, a certain amount of experience. And the other thing is that only good soil can produce a crop, and that's a wake-up call, because it's a wake-up call, because if I'm a thorny soil in this particular situation, and I'm trying to spread love, there is a mismatch there, because what is going to be spread might not be the true love or charity as it should be, because we still have to resignify many things to be a good soil and then to yield crops, right? It doesn't mean that we cannot do good. That's not what I'm saying. It doesn't mean that we cannot be good, do good things, even though sometimes we act as thorny soils or rocky soils. That's not the point. We can always act towards good, right? To spread and to actually be an effective love sower, we gotta work on our soils first. I guess that's the key thing. Okay. So then, to end this, the question that stays with us for the week, or for the years, or for however long this will stick with us, and for sure this teaching from Jesus will stay with us for a long time. How do we connect today with this parable, right? Am I connecting as a soil? Do I understand what are the seeds? Who is my sower? Am I being sowed? Like, Jesus, of course, is spreading love to us. We have other also good beings helping us along the way. And by just to finish, to wrap this up on a personal note, when we study this, and you may go home and think, oh yeah, now Renzo was so in love, and that's not exactly how we should see this, because over here we, as like Victor and Eric, will know what I'm talking about. We're also working our soils while here with you guys, and that's lots of work to do, of course. But the messages of love from Jesus, they are there, and everyone can have access to them, not only through FSS or our activities here, but they are engraved in your conscience, and that's where we should investigate how we connect with the parable of the sower. And with that, this is wrapped up. I like to open for questions or comments, and if not sure exactly what is the plan of the kids, but I'm all ears. No comments whatsoever. Okay.
It was a really good thing.
That was not a good sign. Hey.
Made me reflect a lot, actually, on how we see advice from other people who love us, like parents or siblings and things like that.
Yeah.
Receive them with the thorns already pointed, like we're going to reject that advice.
Yeah.
We're welcome to receive that with a good soul.
And that changes with the experience of life, right? So, for instance, think about teenagers, right? So they get lots of love from their parents, but sometimes like, you know nothing. You don't know what you're talking about. But it's definitely worth to expand that, and we're getting good advice all the time, but the discernment to know the source, it's very important, right? We have good source, the gospel and all the doctrine that we are studying, but we have also people that love us, right? And that's the key thing. And if we don't see, if we cannot see these small day-to-day acts as loving acts, we might be missing a good point of the whole experience in this life, because these are the small things that will actually push us to do the same way, to retribute or to do good to someone else, to grow the crop.
We have they won't be ready to present today, so
Okay.
continue. If you guys have a little bit more points to discuss, reflect.
I want to hear his thoughts. He was paying a lot of attention.
I think this parable specifically, and I guess I know why you mentioned it in the beginning of the meeting, because we have been trying to figure out what is our role. This specific way of view that Renzo brought is that we might be the source, but we can, as the parables have multiple interpretations, we can see ourselves also
As the soil.
how our soil is and go forth. It's important, very important to reflect about how is our soil, because most of the time we think, because I'm here and I am a good soil, but we may vary. Sometimes we are in the middle of rocks, sometimes we are in the path on the road, and have the perception about this and how is for the specific each moment of my life, whatever you do is it's a great source of knowledge, this parable, and it's very reflective on how am I doing my work as well, and volunteering work, for example, in the Spiritist Society, to reflect that am I being a good sower, or is just a reflection that I would like to bring, because for me specifically this parable means a lot. And as we engage in works that bring love or virtues to reflect, it's how am I doing it? Is it with discernment, or am I just my own ideas, right? And the fertilizer is a very important one. So a lot of people kill their plants not fertilizing well. A lot of people misunderstand what is important for each moment. I will give you a simple example. There is a person that have a lot of struggles in this person's life, and we have been talking in fraternal meetings here, and it's from the perception this person is very anxious. He's trying to tackle all the issues of his or her life at once, and then calm down. You have to first bring yourself to serenity, otherwise you can't really perceive all the problems around you. And then this is what we try to do, but if we keep motivating this person, read all the books in the library, is he or she developing serenity? For sure not. So it's a role as we get engaged in this type of work to, am I promoting really the parable in its essence or not?
So what happened to me when I was in that situation? I received a loving message from someone else, right? How did it work with me? Because understanding that, what really touched like deep in the conscience, is that what you probably want to pass forward? That's growing crops, right? So I understood the love message that I got, and I'm preparing, working every day to prepare my soil. And then when I'm trying to help someone else, try to spread the love or the teachings that worked with me, how am I going to do that, right? So listen to previous experience. Learning from someone else's experience, it might be a very wise idea as long as you know it's a good source. So we have all these good spirits telling us, hey, this is what happened to me. This is what made me suffer. It was pride, or it was selfishness. And you should do something different. So they are totally spreading love, or the gospel and love. But then how am I receiving this, right? And I'm saying, you know, it's messing up with some things that I want, like in the short term. I want to travel the world in the short term. But this doesn't resonates with the true message that is coming from past experience. Sometimes it's our own experience and we're just missing it.
That's a very good point. It's important to always reflect what is in it for me, right? Yeah. First.
All right. So once again, I really appreciate your time here. And let's go through the pass, or how?
First, the final prayer.
We do the final prayer. All right. So let's keep harmonized. Let's let all the words of love from Jesus to sit and sink well within our souls. Dear Lord, we're grateful for everything you have done for us, for co-creating this world, for coming and showing by example how we're going to find serenity and peace with ourselves, with our neighbors, in our journey towards God. We also appreciate the help from the good spirits that have been assisting this house, our angels that have been assisting us in our daily lives. How blessed we are to be in contact with the love of God everywhere. Let us take these seeds and make them grow. Let us assist Jesus in the progress of our society. But more than ever, let's help ourselves to feel the love of God every second with us, which will make us walk the path with joy, with happiness. We ask humbly a blessed week for us. We ask for blessings to our loved ones, to everyone connected with us through different channels. So be it.